At the end of the day, everyone just wants to be acknowledged and loved for how they show up in other people's lives, and I know you do too, which is why you clicked on this video. It's not fun to feel like you give with expectation. It's not fun to feel like you can't receive gifts because you feel guilty because you don't deserve it. Expectations ruin relationships, and that's not to say we shouldn't have boundaries and standards, but the more we can let go of unnecessary expectations in our relationships, the more we can appreciate people for who they are and not what they give us. And so in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to release resentment and step into that giver mindset. And when I say giver mindset, I don't mean just giving without expectation. While that is an ideal goal, we would love to get to the point where we do give without expectation. Like truly, we give from our hearts, we don't give with ulterior motives. However, I don't think that's always realistic since we sometimes have subconscious expectations of others, and through experiencing someone who doesn't meet those subconscious expectations, we are then brought aware of those expectations we have. So in this video, I'm really going to be focusing on how to identify subconscious expectations and work through them rather than shaming yourself out of them, rather than seeing that you're this like horrible person for having an expectation of someone. Just learning to observe yourself and learning to observe the way you give and receive so that you can learn how to step more into that giver mindset where you actually give without expectation. And if you're new here, my name's Natalie, and on this channel I talk about how I'm getting my shit together so that you can learn how to get your shit together. This is a supportive space, okay? I don't judge you for having these expectations. I simply push you to do better, and if you like that, be sure to subscribe. First thing I'm going to talk about is some symptoms of how you know that you're out of the giver mindset and that you're going more into the Grinch mindset. I'm going to call it a Grinch mindset because that's truly what it is. Because when we think of the Grinch, his heart was so closed off that it literally shrunk. And that is exactly what you do when you hold on to these negative associations with giving and receiving. But the reason is because you have a wound on your heart, okay? There's a wound when it comes to giving and receiving, whether it's from your childhood, whether it's from a past relationship, whatever it's from, it's causing you pain in your current reality, and you must identify that before you move forward. And I've noticed some people in my comments being like, it's really not that deep. It is that deep, because I can give you simple solutions like just get over it. That doesn't really help you guys. And so we're going to be starting with symptoms of why your heart is closed off to giving and receiving. If you find yourself being passive aggressive in response to someone not meeting an unsaid or said expectation you had, as you grew up, you might have had unnecessary expectations put on you, and in coping with those unnecessary expectations, you were taught to shut up. You could not be direct with how you felt. You didn't have an open ear. And when you did have an open ear, oftentimes they would be passive aggressive to you, which is why you picked up this behavior of being passive aggressive. But the truth is, when you're passive aggressive with how you feel, it doesn't make healthy people want to be in your life. It shows emotional immaturity, and in doing so, you are actually pushing people away. Most people will actually ignore you, unfortunately. Instead of actually hearing you out, they'll ignore you because you came to them with a certain level of aggression, and then when they confront you about that aggression, oftentimes you'll deny, oh no, it's fine, it's fine. They know it's not fine. They're not stupid. Which brings me to the second one, resentment. You might have given someone something and then maybe you didn't receive something back, or you didn't get a thank you, or you didn't get some type of confirmation. And so you started to resent them because you didn't get an expectation of yours met. This is very normal. Again, back to my first ever thing I said on this video. Everyone wants to be acknowledged for their efforts. When you don't feel acknowledged for something you did, you feel shut down. You feel unloved. You feel not worth anything. That is where this stems from. And the third symptom, you feel guilty when you receive a gift from someone. This is a very big indicator that you've had a lot of trauma when someone has given you gifts. You might have had someone who held a gift over your head, or you accepted a gift from someone and they had unsaid expectations of you. And this leads to you feeling like whenever someone is giving you something, there's an ulterior motive behind it. And while I'm not saying that everyone who gives you something has no ulterior motives and are giving without expectation, you're hyper aware of this because you had to be. It's because the environment you grew up in was like walking on eggshells. Things were constantly being held over your head. Someone would literally say, oh, remember when I gave you this? Yeah, you need to do this or else you're ungrateful. You need to do this or else this. You need to do that and this, which made you feel a lot of resentment and a lot of guilt when you actually do receive gifts. And the fourth one I came up with, it's you're hot and cold in relationships. You either overgive to someone or you take everything away. There's this back and forth when it comes to giving. And when someone doesn't meet an expectation of yours, you withdraw all of your energy and you avoid having conversation. That is a very, very key thing. You avoid having a conversation with this person about what they did that bothered you. You just retreat. Having a hard relationship with giving and receiving comes from being in a dynamic where you are walking on eggshells. Holidays didn't make you happy because you knew the expectation behind that gift. You knew that that one aunt was going to give you a backhanded compliment. You knew that there was going to be a fight at the end of the night. You knew that your family was not a safe environment for you to give and receive in. And that your job was to suck it up and plaster on a fake smile. And if you didn't act in accordance with this fake smile, you were ungrateful, you were a brat. I know there's people out there who feel like that in holidays, and this might not be you, okay? I'm not saying that this is everyone who's watching this video. Some of you might just have this really hard time giving and receiving, and you don't really know why. It's not necessarily your family. But for the people that relate to this, I want you to know that you're not alone in hating or dreading the holidays, because your association with it is based on years and years of experience of not having a happy holiday. Receiving gifts from certain family members came with the undisclosed obligation that you had to act in accordance with whatever their expectations were of you, and that you were meant to tolerate any mistreatment by them. You weren't allowed to have boundaries. They took away your autonomy in that sense. And this also goes for other areas of life too, like your family might have done things for you and then held it over your head. For example, let's say you just went out with your friends. You might have came back and then your mom was like, I could have hang out with my friends, but I had to clean the entire house. Just like small comments like that, those things build up, and that is a reflection of their resentment they have. They are resenting you for a choice that they made, that choice being to be a mother, to be a parent. And so if you can recognize that that is misplaced resentment, I want you to understand that in your situation, let's say you're resenting someone because you gave them something and you didn't get what you needed, right? Whether that was a thank you, whether that was a card, whether that was a phone call, whether that was a closer relationship with them. The resentment that you have for that person is misplaced since you had that expectation that was undisclosed. That person did not agree to your undisclosed expectations. All they did was accept your unsolicited gift. And now they're the bad guy because you didn't get what you wanted. That is a form of manipulation. Now, it's not crazy manipulation, but it is a form of manipulation when you're giving things with expectations and you are aware of those expectations. Your awareness of the expectations really dictates how manipulative it actually is. But that's why I say getting to this pinnacle of giving without any expectation is a little bit unrealistic when a lot of the reasons we give to people come with subconscious expectations that we aren't aware of until that person doesn't give us what we want. A very common example is a man will buy a girl flowers and that girl will accept those flowers, but that man will have unsaid expectations of, oh, I want you as my girlfriend. But that girl wasn't aware of this expectation and just thought he was doing something nice. So you see how undisclosed expectations can get you in situations where you are misreading someone's intentions. It might have not been their intention to not meet your expectation. They were just unaware of it. And you can't get mad at that person who was unaware of the expectation you had for not meeting that expectation. But the solution isn't to get mad at yourself either. You can't get mad at yourself for something that you weren't aware of. You can only become aware of it and move forward and heal it. So when you become aware of this expectation that wasn't met, how can you do better in setting boundaries and learning when to stop giving? Because it goes back to that hot and cold thing that I talked about earlier. It's either you're giving everything to someone or you're taking all of it away. When you flip-flop and giving way too much or way too little, you'll also not learn your own boundaries when it comes to giving and receiving. And a little trick I learned in how to tune into your intuition and tune into when you're overextending yourself, pay attention to when you start to feel angry. Pay attention to resentment. Because if you're anything like me, you'll tend to stuff down resentment and just go, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, until it's not fine anymore. Until you are indeed overextending yourself. If it feels exhausting, pay attention. If it feels draining, pay attention. If it makes your emotions feel like a roller coaster, also pay attention. To release yourself from resentment is also to release yourself from unnecessary expectations. And you might realize that that expectation you have is actually a standard of yours, and it's something you need to keep in your life, and maybe that person isn't meant for you in your life. Something that helps me identify if I'm giving with heavy expectation is if I'm fantasizing about what that person is gonna give me back. Alright y'all, I had to hop out of that spot because it was getting a little creepy, and then I just ended up going home, so it's the next day. But for the rest of this video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to step into that giver mindset now that you guys know why your relationship with giving and receiving is harmed. Now this might sound counterintuitive, but don't give to people you feel obligated to give to, or try not to give something of monetary value, because when you spend resources, your own money, especially if you're not in the best financial place, on someone you feel obligated to give to, that automatically makes you more resentful, because not only are you not in the financial place to be spending money on something for someone else, on top of that you feel like a bad person if you don't. Now I'm not saying don't give to people who you feel obligated to give to. Sometimes it's inevitable that we have to give to people in a work setting, in a family setting, but there's ways to make gift giving actually fun, and one way I like to make gift giving fun is I make something for someone. This can be baking, making jewelry, making a painting, whatever it is, you spend time out of your day to make this person something, and in doing so you enjoy the process. That, and I feel like it's even more thoughtful than just going to the store and buying some random gift. Something I like to do is I like to make beaded jewelry for people, and even though yes, I did spend money on the jewelry supplies, it doesn't feel like I'm spending money on people because it's already something that's a hobby of mine. So giving someone a gift that I made is also a lot more personal, so I feel like I can think of who they are and then, you know, put my own twist into it and make something that they're really gonna enjoy. But even then, just understand that you don't owe anyone anything. I know it can be difficult and you can feel resentful that you have to give someone something, you have to participate in the holidays, you have to do this, but you don't have to do it. The only reason you should participate in something is because you genuinely want to do it. You know, you're in that giver mindset. You get excited because you know you're gonna make a jewelry piece for someone, or you're gonna bake a pie for someone. And although these things might seem silly or simple, a lot more people enjoy gifts that they can see that you put effort into. Another way to step into the giver mindset is to also step into the receiver mindset. So you have to be open to receiving as well. You have to be open to receiving love. This thing that you do when you feel guilty when someone gives you something and you deny it because you feel like they have ulterior motives, it doesn't actually help you. In fact, you're actually pushing away people who just give out of the kindness of their heart. And if you want this giver mindset, you need to be open to relationships where there's an equal give and take, not ones where you feel like your efforts are taken advantage of. Which brings me to my third point: cut off people who it's not mutual with. I'm sorry, but you have to discern your own standards versus expectations in your life. Sometimes you're ruminating on an expectation of yours because it's actually a standard. It's actually something you need in relationships. It's a need of yours, and you're trying to settle for this expectation when it's actually no, that's a standard, and that's something you should have in your life in order to protect your energy, protect yourself, and also just be surrounded with people who also share your own values when it comes to giving and receiving. And the last one, be resilient. Don't allow one bad experience where you gave to someone and they didn't give back ruin your entire perception on giving and receiving. Don't adopt this Grinch mindset, because when you really think about it, this one person who didn't give back, who didn't reciprocate your energy, they are wounded. They closed off their heart to giving and receiving because they were hurt in the past. Now you know that there's selfish people out there who will take from you, who will screw you over, who will do everything in the book to tear you down. But what are you gonna do about it? Because walking around with your heart closed off doesn't actually open you up to better and new experiences. I need you to get that through your head. Protect your energy, because at the end of the day, the reason why we have difficulty with giving and receiving is because we don't know when to start and we don't know when to stop. And by opening yourself up, you learn those things. You can't just close yourself off forever. You can't just be this lone wolf forever. With that being said, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what you agree with. If you have a different perspective, let me know, because I am only one person. And because it's Thanksgiving week, I want to say a special thank you, and that I'm so grateful for all my new supporters. I see your guys' DMs. I see your guys' comments. Thank you guys so much for showing love, especially at the beginning of this journey of mine. I'm just so grateful to have this space space, and I'm so grateful that I opened myself up to new experiences, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have you guys, and that's so awesome. Also, put some suggestions down in the comments of specific things you want me to talk about. Okay, I'll see you guys. Okay, bye guys. Bye!